Hey guys, welcome back. Been a while since we've done a tier list video, so I figured why not do one of those. This is the first time I've ever recorded a video live on Twitch, actually, and something, if this goes well, I'm hoping to do more often. So yeah, follow me on Twitch, and if you need to use the name there as well. I'll be doing more stuff like this, maybe some review content, over there, whatever. Um, yeah, stop by. Uh, Today we're going to be tier listing Marvel movies. Yeah, that's all the intro has to be. I don't know why I'm stalling so much. Alright, here we are. We have our tier list here. I didn't make this tier list. I don't know. Everything's on here. I don't know if I've seen everything. Um, but yeah, these are all movies and shows and stuff based on Marvel comics. They're not exclusively MCU stuff, but uh, looks of things, majority stuff are from some X-Men and whatever in here. Um, yeah, we're gonna go through them, and you know how it works. You've seen tier lists before, won't we? Why am I stalling? Why am I explaining this? Let's start off here. We have just the Wolverine. Um, to be honest, I don't know if I remember this movie all that much, but that might be quite a common thing with this film. I think it's not a hugely popular movie, is it? Yeah, it's the one where Wolverine's in Japan and fights like a mech or something, right? Um, Probably a solid C tier, right? Just a perfectly serviceable but ultimately kind of forgettable movie. I think. Where were we? X-Men: Days of Future Past. Uh, this is another one. I remember liking this movie a lot when I first saw it. I can't remember much about it now. Like I remember that Quicksilver thing, that like slow motion thing where he like flips the guy's hat and eats some soup. That was pretty cool. But other than that, um, yeah, I don't know. It's probably another C tier for me. Again, sorry if I honestly don't know with the X-Men movies. I don't know people's opinions on these things anymore. Um, so yeah, sorry if I've said something controversial without realizing it, but I mean, most of them are just fine. That's my prediction for where I'm going to end up here. I think they're going to get a lot of C tier X-Men movies. That being said, X-Men Apocalypse is terrible. It's one of the worst Marvel movies of all time. Like this thing sucks. Uh, that's all I have to. It's F. F. Absolutely terrible film. Terrible, terrible film. We're powering through these X-Men movies I've completely forgotten. So the stuff one I actually like, Logan. Logan, this movie. This movie is spectacular. You probably don't need me to tell you. If you're watching a video or stream about Marvel movies, you've seen Logan, but what a movie. Like, what is there to say about it that hasn't already been said? This film is emotional. It's incredibly hard hitting. It's Look, is it weird to say the best Western of the 2010s was like an X-Men film? Is that allowed? But it is. It's that good. Um, that closing shot just sticks with me. That'll never leave my psyche. That's amazing. So yeah, that's an easy. Ah, did it wrong. That's an easy S tier. No one can debate that surely. There's this Dark Phoenix. This is one of the most forgettable movies of all time, and I know I've said that about like all of the X-Men movies that aren't Logan so far, but oh my goodness, this film is so boring. Uh, I don't think it's as bad. It was as bad as Apocalypse. Yeah, maybe it was a bit mean. Apocalypse is funny. Like funny batting. Apocalypse up to D, I think, and I'm gonna put Dark Phoenix beside it. They're kind of on par. quality wise. Again, Apocalypse is like funny bad at points, but Dark Phoenix is just bad. They're gonna yeah. Speaking of bad movies, let's just go ahead and throw New Mutants right beside Dark Phoenix there. Absolutely nothing to add on that film. There was a bear in it. That's it's about the only interesting thing about New Mutants. Man, I'm starting to wonder, do I actually like the X-Men movies? Like, I thought I did. This is starting to, I'm starting to prove myself wrong on that one. Uh, this isn't going how I thought it would so far. Let's put it that way. All right, what's this? He's right over. It starts. Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2002, the first Spider-Man movie. This film has held up, but it also hasn't held up at all. You know what I mean? It's one of those. It's super off its time. It's very comic booky, very campy, very silly, but it's a lot of fun. And you've got like Willem Dafoe just eating scenery, not even chewing scenery, just fully chowing down knife and fork on that thing. The smoke bomb turns people to skeletons. You know, it's a ridiculous one, but it's so much fun. And it's an A tier. That's an A tier movie. We're gonna put Spider-Man 2 beside it. Spider-Man 2 gets the better rap out of the two, I think. People like Spider-Man 2 a lot more. Um, I think they're kind of on par. I like both of them quite a bit. I think it just built on the first one did quite well. It really does, it raises the stakes and everything, and it just without going overboard, shall we say, it doesn't ramp things up too far to the point where it's now completely unintelligible or unwatchable. Um, which feels like it should be a segue into making fun of Spider-Man 3. I don't hate Spider-Man 3. It is a convoluted mess, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. Um, yeah, I love everything with Sandman in Spider-Man 3. I love everything. I like a lot of the symbiote stuff with in concept. I think Topher Grace is a terrible choice for Eddie Brock, and obviously, uh, Billy Maguire is the dumbest thing ever. Um, but there's fun to hands fine with it's a mixed bag movie, so I guess it's a C tier, right? Yeah, it's a C tier. I know that like 2010 YouTube would have a massive issue with me saying that, but there we go. Yeah, it's fine. Yes, it's fine. Amazing Spider-Man. This is the tough one because the internet has decided it's in love with Andrew Garfield and therefore in love with the Amazing Spider-Man movies recently, off the back of No Way Home. So I feel need to tread lightly when I say this film is okay. This film is it's okay. Uh, I like Andrew Garfield in it. I think he's a wonderful Peter Parker. I've always loved his Peter Parker, but the film's just kind of boring. If anything, like it's just uninteresting. I don't like the lizard at all. Lizard design, I think, is terrible. I don't think the character was all that interesting. Let's go C tier for Amazing Spider-Man as well. They're right here with Spider-Man 3. And the nerds can debate that. Why am I calling them nerds if I'm not the one making the tier list here? Howard the Duck. Like I'm just gonna put an F. You know it's gonna be an F. It's one of the worst movies ever made. But oh, this is a fun movie. This is brilliantly terrible. This is yeah, this is a future midnight screening episode right here. This is absolutely something I'm hoping to get on the show. Because I love this thing. This is if you don't know a lot about it, if you've heard me talk about Dragon Ball Evolution on midnight screening, this is similar. To me, it's a very similar vibe of yeah, they did nothing right in this movie. There's nothing done correctly. Uh, So if that's your thing, uh, like you know it is mine, then yeah, what? Check it out. Um, Amazing Spider-Man 2, again. We've spoken about already with Amazing Spider-Man that the internet has decided it's in love with these movies and that these movies were flawless and perfect. So, um, just know I take no joy in telling you that the thing you like was bad. Not even bad. Like, there's nothing. I said before, you can like what you like. I'm not gonna judge you for liking things, but like, I'm sorry, that's where it belongs. It's an F tier movie. It's an F tier movie. It's a terrible movie. It's a bad movie. Bad film. Okay. Homecoming, Spider-Man Homecoming. That's a really fun movie. This is a really fun high school movie, a really fun high school comedy. It's just kind of also a Spider-Man film, and I think the Spider-Man stuff is the worst part. Um, but I really like Peter Parker, Tom Holland's Peter Parker. I really like his sort of little group of friends and everything with them. And yeah, it's just a fun movie, you know. Like I just don't think you hear a lot about the MCU stuff, but like we'll come to it. I don't like them all equally at all. I don't think they all capture that sense of fun as well as this one did. So this is a, you know, I'm gonna put it in A tier. Actually, I'm gonna put it with the first two Tobey Maguire ones. Um, and be mad if you want to be. I don't care. It's my list. That's doing this. Uh, Far From Home. I like Far From Home. I'll be honest. I like the movie. It's not perfect. I guess it's not. It's not the best Spider-Man movie, but yeah, I like it. Um, I like taking a character like Spider-Man and putting them in a different context. I think that's really clever. I liked, yeah, seeing him react to a danger in a different sort of city, a different country, even I thought was actually quite smart, quite clever. I enjoyed that. Mysterio is just an interesting villain. You know, like it's a. I thought it was kind of ridiculous from a as a comic book fan with the marketing being like, "There's a new hero. Oh, totally, he's gonna stay good." You know, no, one Google search, you know, even just people watching the trailer being like, "Who is Mysterio?" To Google, they know the plot twist of the movie, but I think they did it well enough. I like the way they handled the plot twist with Mysterio. I think it was in B. I think this is a B tier movie. Yeah, I like Far From Home. I do. I think it gets unnecessarily hated on sometimes. Right, where are we now? No Way Home. Um, I've already talked quite a lot about No Way Home. If you've listened to the new podcast episode, you should know my feelings. I like this movie quite a lot. It's far from flawless. There are several things with No Way Home that annoy me or just didn't quite sit right with me for whatever reason. But like it's just fun. You know, it's just fun seeing something that has that much respect for Spider-Man. You know, just that level of respect for just a silly thing I liked as a child. You know, that's now uh, blown up on this big screen, and everything good about it, everything that wasn't so good about it, all being presented back at you in this really fun movie that doesn't, it doesn't shy away from taking itself seriously as well. Like yeah, it's, I put an A. It's not an S tier movie. It's not an S tier. I anticipating the comments, having not put No Way Home in S tier. I know people are still loving this thing, but it's an A. It's an A. I think that's fair. All right, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is one of the greatest movies. This is one of the greatest animated movies. Sorry, I should have said ever. This film is incredible. Start to finish, this film just keeps adding to itself, keeps pushing itself further and further forward into what it can be, whether that be with bringing in new animation styles and then layering animation styles on top of each other in a way I've never seen done before. And doing all this, you know, incredibly over the top cartoony stuff. You know, there's a talking pig in the movie voiced by John Mulaney. There's big mech suit operated by a trainee anime girl, and yet it tells one of the most engaging movies a comic book film tells one of the most engaging stories, sorry, a comic book film has ever managed to tell. This film just everything about the film is one of the greatest animated films of all time. Maybe one of my favorite films of all time. Easy S tier. Easy S tier. Right beside Logan, where it belongs. Venom. Venom. Sorry, does anyone else struggle to say the name of this movie without thinking of the Eminem song plays in the credits? You know, I can't hear the name Venom without thinking of that Venom thing from the from the song. But I taste my Venom thing. That song probably being the most interesting about Venom. I don't like this movie. I've never liked this movie. I think this movie is terrible. Um, I haven't seen this since it came out in cinemas, but I remember there being one like a motorcycle chase in it that was pretty good, but the ending just being this like two big grey masses of CGI goo just kind of tangling in each other, which was so boring and so uninteresting. Like I just stopped watching it. I just stopped paying attention. Um, not Unsalvageable, not the worst movie ever. Like it's not Howard the Duck, but it was in D tier. We have another F tier, and we have more F tiers than we have S tiers, which is a shame. But like Jubilee Meat, Daredevil is off its time. It's from a time where comic book movies were starting to be taken seriously. We're still not at Iron Man yet. Like we're not at that level where comic movies are probably just a huge part of the mainstream. They're just every other big movie is a comic movie. Like they now, and they were just starting to get sort of footholds, and people didn't know what to do with them. And yeah, you had misfires all the time. Daredevil's not the worst one. It's not even the most interesting. It's just a bad movie. Like it's just a bad movie. Um, Hulk. Hulk. What do you say about Hulk? Um, for context for people that don't remember, Hulk is the movie with the Hulk dogs, where Hulk ends up punching a big cloud at the end. Uh, whereas with Eric Bana, not the Edward Norton one. That we'll get to the Edward Norton one in a minute. Um, what I was saying about Daredevil, there was a time where just people were trying to figure out how to make comic book movies, and they could tell it was going to be a thing, but it just was not going well, at all. Hulk is a prime example. It's gonna need to go in F. That's the wrong. I moved the wrong one. Now we're gonna talk about the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. Um, I think I did a back on my old blog. I did a ranking of all the MCU movies, and I think I called this one the one you can skip. Um, having revisited it, I think it's still fair. Like this is still a pretty dull movie. Really, like it's not bad. It's not a bad film. It's just see, I'm struggling to think of things to say about it. That's his problem. Um, bonus point for having that bit where the Hulk kicks Tim Roth into a tree. That's pretty great. But yeah, other than that, it's a detour movie. It's not great. Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four is the most unfortunate franchise of all time. This these two here, these were two of my favorite movies when I was a little kid. I do kind of want to deep dive into them at some point. I think they're absolutely fascinating because of just how little actually happens in them. They're so slow and meandering and dull. But they've got a charm to them that I can't call them F tiers because I have so much nostalgia and so much love for them deep down, but they're not good enough to be up here. So yeah. I'm gonna put them both in D. I think so they belong just now. So yeah, I can't bring myself to put the Fantastic Four movies in the F tier. But that being said, Bent Four Stick, this thing is an easy F tier. This is one of the worst comic book movies ever made. One of those movies ever made. Genuinely fascinating story, like the whole thing around Josh Trank, the Chronicle director, like trying to make one movie and then it it being like completely deconstructed after shooting by the studio and all the reshoots and stuff to the point where like poor Kate Mara, you can see her wig changing between like not even between scenes, like between shots. Like her the wig she's wearing is completely different. Hers like completely different color. The reshoots were handled that poorly. And everything around like yeah, George Trank like trashing a hotel room or something because the film was so bad. Like it's a fascinating movie, a very interesting film, but it's painful to watch. Absolutely painful to watch. Blade 2, directed by Guillermo del Toro, is yeah, it's the best Blade movie by far. I think this is a fun movie. This is a mental film that yeah from the again from the director of like Pan's Labyrinth. What would you expect? Like I put Blade 2 an A. I don't think it's held up incredibly well. Yeah. I don't think it's held up like extremely well, but it's held up. It's good. Ghost Rider. Like if I couldn't bring myself to put the Fantastic Four movies in F tier for being really fun pieces of personal nostalgia. I can't bring myself. I'm the same with Ghost Rider. I can't bring myself to put Ghost Rider in F tier either. Like this is a movie that if I wasn't looking at the poster right now, I would think I made up as a 7-year-old. Like Nicolas Cage as a Nicolas Cage riding a motorcycle and he's on fire. Like that is everything I wanted to see at that age, and I loved it. Like I thought this was amazing. It's not good, but I'm gonna put it in D tier. Um, Spirit of Vengeance. Spirit of Vengeance I didn't see till later, and I think it is legitimately better than the first Ghost Rider. It's by the Crank guys, I believe, and it tells like some of the action in this movie is actually pretty good for what it is for being a sequel to Ghost Rider. Um, but with being just as stupid and just as like Nicolas Cagey as the first one. So they kind of balance out, I think. Like it's got better action and is less like it's slightly more legitimate, whilst the other one's like complete camp. So they balance out to both being almost good. So we'll put them together here in D. Iron Man. Uh, okay, here we go. Iron Man 1, start of the MCU. Very simple movie. Very simple movie. Looking back on it now, it's like compared to where this franchise has gone, like even literally like geographically, the fact that like this is a character that's now been in space and it was like no big deal. And this first movie is it's so simple, but look, it's an A tier alone for no, it's an A tier for impact alone for like cultural relevance. This movie deserves to be an A tier. It just helps that it's also a great movie. Like it's a genuinely funny film with some really good characters. Kind of loses momentum at the end. Becomes the first real example of uh you know fighting game syndrome. You know what I mean? Like clone character syndrome, where the hero just kind of fights their clone character, their like palette swap version of themselves. Pause the film to introduce that, but yeah, this is a film I find myself going back to a lot. Uh, Yeah, easy A tier, easy A tier. Wait, wait, Iron Man 2. Everything good I just said about Iron Man does not apply to Iron Man 2. This movie is useless. Yeah, Iron Man 2 is a film I think Marvel have learned from. Like, it's a mistake they had to make where too much of the movie is. Well, there's too much of the interesting parts of the movie are setups for later films. Like, this film will grind to a halt to talk about things that aren't in this movie but are going to be important later. Well, as later MCU movies, ended up trying to find more engaging ways to like integrate plot elements into the narrative or into the scene without feeling like intrusive. That genuinely make you want to be like, oh well, what was that? Like, how does this affect everything? How where is this going? As opposed to like knocking you over the head with information that you're definitely not going to remember because it's delivered so flatly and boring. There are positives, of course. I love Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer. I think he's so good in this movie. Um, that like suitcase Iron Man thing, everybody loves it. Like that's one of the best Iron Man suit ups in the whole franchise. Um, I know it's a D tier movie. This is a D. Yeah, it's got Elon Musk cameo. Like this isn't. I feel like it should talk points for that alone. Iron Man 3. I'm trying to think. Have I think given really any overly controversial opinions yet? Uh, or is this going to be the first one? Because Iron Man 3 is great. Okay, Iron Man 3 is so good. This is like I love that this movie. It takes the character and puts them in a very different situation. Like this is it's less a movie about Iron Man and more a movie about Tony Stark. You know, it was the first film to deal with the consequences of the first Avengers movie and you know the impact that has on a character. Like an event like that would have on a character personally. Which I thought I genuinely think it's really interesting. You see Tony, you know, have to figure things out without the suit. You know, he has to deal without that, which I genuinely think is yeah, it makes one of the more interesting MCU movies in that regard. Like plot wise, not everything works. The like third act reveal, I think starts brilliantly and then just keeps. Yeah, that third act just it keeps piling itself until it just kind of stops working and then the film ends. But I'm gonna put some B next to Far From Home. I think they're quite similar in regards of they get a lot more hate than they deserve, but like I get it. There's issues, but yeah, go back to them. They're a lot better than you're probably envisioning. Thor, Thor one. It's another film I loved when I first saw it, but yeah, it's not held up. This film is nothing. Like this film is so slow. Nothing happens in this movie. It's such a small thing. And that can work in its advantage sometimes. It's got that fish out of water thing that was so popular in fantasy at the time. To take like he's a mythical god and we've taught him about coffee and RVs. You know, like which can be funny though. Like the pet shop thing I think is good, the thing with the coffee, but yeah, everything on Asgard is significantly more interesting than anything on Earth, and the film just has this really backwards percentage of where things take place and what characters do what. That yeah, again, it was an early attempt to see what they could do with these types of movies that I think they've learned and grown from since. Uh, so yeah, C tier. It's fine. How many more do we have? Okay, that's not too many. Okay, I said that Thor was a movie they like learned from, but textbook not learning your lesson is Thor: The Dark World. They made Thor even more boring with this movie. This I don't know what I can say, but I have nothing to say. I'm genuinely struggling to remember anything about Thor: The Dark World. I think that the bad guy was it was Doctor Who as an elf, and there was some kind of floating red thing that made Natalie Portman sick. Yeah, that's where that goes. And I don't anticipate an argument from anybody else. This I don't know, we'll see. Maybe my comments will prove me wrong. Uh look, if you want proof as to like how bad Thor the Dark World is, all you need to know is that like for the third part of the trilogy, they just ignored it. They completely disrespect both Thor movies really. The tone Thor was going for and what Thor was supposed to be, this like Shakespearean tragedy that like the first two pull off. And then Taika Waititi made this like neon nightmare of Thor Ragnarok, and it's so much better. Like Thor is a much more interesting character. They introduce actual interesting characters, like Valkyrie, not the YouTube streamer, Valkyrie. Um, for being the MCU's first like full-on comedy, it's actually funny, which was good because I'm not really into like the humor of Marvel movies. I don't find Marvel movies all that funny for the most part. They're like fun. They're not like I don't think I ever really laugh at them, but yeah, Thor Ragnarok's absolutely hilarious. I put an A tier. I think it belongs in A tier. Then the Blade one, is this Blade Trinity? Yeah, Blade Trinity. I mean, I've basically already said I hate this movie, right? Um, I also just don't. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about Blade Trinity. I'm just gonna put it right here. Captain America. Captain America 1. Captain America the first Avenger. I like a good, fun throwback type movie. It's a film that just to capture the feeling of like a much older Hogan's Heroes type war thing. I think for the most part it does it well. It's an enjoyable film. It's held up. I don't think it's great. I don't think its pacing is particularly good. I don't think it's structured particularly well. I don't think the villains are all that interesting. The Howl Hydra thing. I think they get interesting later, like kind of, but it's uh yeah, again only kind of. I'm I'm placing C, I think. Yeah. It's fine. Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier though, this was the first MCU movie to be directed by the Russo brothers. Uh and showed why the Russo brothers took on such a big responsibility within the MCU later. Because they just know how to direct these kind of movies. Like, it's a great action movie. It's a great spy thriller. It's a great superhero film. It just everything it tries to do, it does really well. With like including big plot twists, including like major character reveals and things like that, as well as engaging action sequences and yeah, like it just yeah. S is going up in S. I think it's going with Spider-Man and Logan here. Civil War. Civil War was also directed by the Russo brothers. Avengers 2.5, if you will. It's a film I really enjoyed watching when it came out. So it was a good cinema experience, but I don't like. I never really wanted to come back to it. I've seen it once since it came out, because it really does feel like a film that fills in between parts of the MCU. Like it doesn't. It is like some scenes that start like in a deal with the fallout of like Age of Ultron and Winter Soldier and things, and then a real big exciting action scene for about a third of the movie, and then We can deal with the fallout of the action scene and set up the next couple of films. It's a very basic movie, but that airport fight scene is so good. It's so good. Look, if this was just like if this was a short film just about the airport fight scene, it's an S tier. With everything else around it, I'm gonna put it in A, I think. Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, the Avengers. Even if it was directed by he who shall not be named, the impact this film has had, like the sheer importance of the Avengers Assemble, whatever you want to call it, it deserves to be an S tier. It's also like a very engaging, exciting action movie. It's so good. All the characters bounce off each other perfectly. They interact in such an interesting and engaging way. But yeah, really, this film deserves to be an S tier just because it's the Avengers. It was the first film to really. It's a sequel to six other movies, or five of the movies, or however many there are. Like, it's a sequel to multiple different movies at once, which hadn't been done yet, at least not done this well, this successfully. On the flip side of that, though, Age of Ultron is simultaneously everything that makes the Avengers fantastic and great, and everything that like could have killed it is also present in Age of Ultron, which is such a shame. Uh, I think it gets a worse rap than it deserves, but it is a very paint by numbers basic movie, like basic film. So yeah, I think that's probably a C tier here. The again, like cultural impact of Infinity War deserves to be bumped up a bit. I'm years later, I'm still amazed by this movie. Like the fact it exists, the fact that it's as good as it is insane. This movie is like 12 different movies just sort of stitched together, and it never feels unintelligible. It never feels like or boring. It never gets boring or feels like it's focusing on the wrong thing at the wrong time. And that cliffhanger, that ending, the gall, like the gall of ending a movie like that. This is an easy S tier. Endgame's a movie I hate giving my opinion on the internet because people get mad at me for not thinking it's a masterpiece. It's really good. Like it's really good, but it's not like really good. It's not this good. It's this good. Yeah. I was saying like Infinity War feels like it should feel like a bunch of movies just sort of stitched together. Endgame does. Endgame feels like three separate movies that you're just watching at once. Three very good movies that I don't mind watching all at once, but it still feels like that. Like it on a rewatch, you do kind of have to get through some stuff until you can get to that like incredibly satisfying ending. But I'm gonna stop talking about it before people get mad at me. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy was one of the first films I saw when I was younger that was a comic book movie that I had no idea what it was going in. Which was such a fun experience. I wasn't expecting it to be as like it blew me away. Like I loved it. It was one of the funniest movies I'd ever seen. It was one of the most engaging movies I've ever seen. Bearing in mind I saw it for my 13th birthday, so caveat to I hadn't seen a lot of movies. But yeah, this one still holds like quite a special place in my heart for like being so out there and so different and so unique. It's what introduced me to James Gunn, which I'll thank it for. Chris Pratt does suck. If we docked Iron Man 2 points for the fact Elon Musk sucks, maybe we should dock Guardians of the Galaxy for similar reasons, but if we ignore that, it's an easy S tier, I think. Which takes us to Ant-Man. Uh, YouTuber is Prebuilt's favorite MCU movie. Ant-Man. um, Ant-Man really gives a crap. I think these films, we're gonna talk them together. I think these films are okay for the most part. I think the first one, like, you can tell the scenes that were clearly from the original Edgar Wright movies, which would have been infinitely better from like the Thomas the Tank Engine thing and the briefcase fight and whatever, which are again so clearly from Edgar Wright's vision. They're great. Everything else is kind of just okay or uninteresting. Paul Rudd, I think, is a great choice for Scott Lang. Like, I think he carries it just enough. I'm gonna put Ant Man in C. I'm gonna put Ant Man the Wasp in D for kind of just retreading the first one again. And all the like, can we admit all the cool scenes in Ant Man and the Wasp are things we saw in other movies already? Like, they really build up to him getting real big, which happened in Civil War. I think the films are placed poorly in the timeline, like we're both deep in galactic conflict, and then suddenly it's like, ooh, a heist for a suit. Absolutely. I will never understand why Ant-Man and the Wasp came out after Infinity War. That is insane. Like, yeah, they did the biggest film they'd ever done, which ends on a massive cliffhanger, and then we just kind of watch like Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas hang around for 2 hours. Yeah, like we've done quite a few MCU movies here, so yeah, we're talking about X-Men again. Back to the X-Men movies. Uh, X-Men 1. This is a bizarre film. This is. I've talked a lot already about how there was a time pre Iron Man where people were still trying to figure out how to use comic book characters in movies at all. X-Men, I think did a lot of good in terms of there being time and effort and care put into it to make something good, but also it took a few steps back in regards to refusal to acknowledge anything too ridiculous. Feeling the need to overly ground things. Concepts that are inherently ridiculous, inherently silly, and just kind of brushing them away and ignoring them. I think it's a good movie. I think it's worth acknowledging its impact later. Uh, you have already. I think some of the decisions made in X Men are what led to like we've already talked about like Daredevil and Hulk here. That's where this comes from. This comes from this, but this is how you do it. This is not how you do it. I'll put X Men in A. Yeah, yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, not as good. Not as good. Guardians 2 is, I think, visually better. It's maybe my favorite AMC movie visually. Like every other shot is like a screensaver. There's that bit where like Gamora's like sitting on this planet and everything's like green and blue behind her, and she's just like sitting like wiping a sword or something. Incredible. Like it looks incredible, but it's not funny. Not funny at all. There are jokes in this movie that just drag on so long. I'm gonna call this a C tier movie. Yeah, it's about all the Carrick and muster for Guardians too. So yeah, Deadpool. Let's all just take a minute. Like it's been what? When that movie came out? 2016. So it's been what, like 5 6 years since this thing came out. It's crazy that this thing happened. Like at all. Like if you remember the like lead up to Deadpool. Deadpool feels came out 30 years ago. I completely agree with you, but it genuinely does. It's a completely different like world cinematically. But like that whole thing with like they did some test footage that they shelved and then it got leaked online and like fans are petitioning for it and we weren't sure if we're ever gonna get like a an R-rated Deadpool movie, which again just feels like a foreign concept with how massive Ryan Reynolds is, how huge just anything comic book related is that they'll just adapt any comic book they can find. But yeah, the movie itself is I think it holds up. It's not. I spoke on the podcast about how kind of done I am personally with Ryan Reynolds and his whole shtick. So rewatching Deadpool kind of feels like a bit of a chore nowadays, but yeah, it's shot really well. It's some fantastic action sequences. The stuff on the bridge is all great. I'm gonna put Deadpool in A. There next to. I also find it quite funny putting it beside the first X-Men movie. Just there you go. There's growth there, franchise growth between these two. And Deadpool 2 is the first film I think I saw where I was like, I'm kind of over this. Like it felt behind itself a little bit. There's two dubstep jokes in Deadpool 2. Like 5 years after anyone cared. Yeah, that movie to me always felt like it was trying too hard, almost, which is not what we want, especially from Deadpool. Deadpool's a character that like it's so hard to not come across like that, and the first one did it well, and the second one just didn't at all. I was gonna put it in C, but then it feels mean to Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Up in D. Doctor Strange. Another film that was blew me away when I saw it, and I just haven't cared about since. It's the problem with Marvel movies. Again, visually, really good. Like, but plot wise, so boring, so uninteresting. I hate, I kind of hate Doctor Strange as a character because he's just a blank slate. He's the worst offender of the whole every MCU character is just Tony Stark again thing. Side note, I finally went watching Power of the Dog and was shocked to hear that Benedict Cumberbatch can actually do a good American accent. What is going on in the Doctor Strange movies? Why is he doing that voice? What is that voice? It's another detail. Do you know what? For the special effects, for like the murder and stuff alone, I'm gonna bump it up to C. Right, Black Panther. Wild thinking about now, but there was a Marvel movie that was nominated for Best Picture, and people thought genuinely might win. Like it didn't, but it could have. That is crazy, and it is one of the best MCU movies because it actually has like character dynamics like a real movie. Like it's got an interesting villain with like a cool character arc and a cool like concept behind them. Like there's a actual debate going on between the hero and the villain that like changes the hero's mind. The hero has like growth, which look it shouldn't be something I'm praising a movie for, but I've seen a lot of comic book movies and that so rarely happens. Um, the one issue with Black Panther is that like I don't know if it was like a crunch time thing, like a time restraint thing on the visual effects department, or rewrites leading to new things, or just genuinely that like characters didn't care, like the director sorry didn't care about the side of it that was a an action movie. But my goodness, whenever Black Panther and Killmonger fight, it's like watching a PS2 cutscene from Enter the Matrix. Like it's so bad. But yeah, I'm going for Black Panther in A. Yeah, Captain Marvel is a good movie trapped inside a really bad movie. I don't know if that makes sense. That's just how I like Like that's my best way of describing it. It's nowhere near as terrible as like people will have you think. It is. I think Shang-Chi got similar, like a similar response from certain people where like I'm looking at it and I'm like, where is the difference between this and most other MCU movies other than the person on the poster? Um, I do think, yeah, I think Carol Danvers is a bit of a blank slate character. She's not all that interesting, but there's enough good stuff in Captain Marvel. I'm gonna say Doctor Strange. I think they're quite similar movies, honestly. Black Widow. Black Black Widow has similar problems to me as Captain Marvel. I think it's another good movie trapped inside a bad movie. Give it S tier for Florence Pugh. She deserves it. If we were ranking performances here, yes, I do love Florence Pugh. Uh, if I delayed streaming because my Blu-ray of the Midsummer Director's Cut just came. It just got delivered. Florence Pugh, yeah, Florence Pugh is queen. Yeah, when Black Widow becomes an action movie, it's so ridiculous. Like the tone difference between like Florence Pugh and David Harbour singing American Pie together and having this like really heartfelt moment, and then Black Widow like swan diving off a skyscraper, it just doesn't work. Uh, we've got another D tier. Shang-Chi. Yeah, I love Shang-Chi. We talked it to like No Way Home. We already talked to death about it on the last podcast episode, but yeah, another probably weaker story, but the action scenes in Shang-Chi are phenomenal. Uh, again, that bus fight, I'd pay to watch that bus fight alone. That was enough price of admission, and there was a whole very good action movie attached to it. We're gonna put it in A next to it's the Black Panther. X2, X-Men 2, X-Men United, X-Men 2 colon United, X2 colon United, of whatever this movie's called now, because they keep changing their minds. This is another film I remember absolutely loving, but it's been a long time since I've seen it. That like opening Nightcrawler scene is still fantastic. I think it's one of my favorite scenes in any comic book movie. I remember it just feeling like it ramped up everything that first X-Men movie did. But again, it's been so long I don't remember it enough. Like I feel like if I had seen it recently, it'd probably be an S tier. But it's been so long. I'm gonna put it in A, and then apologize on Twitter if I'm wrong. Eternals. Eternals is a movie I have struggled to find things to say about since Eternals came out. Um, very pretty movie. Very, very pretty movie. Uh, and that's it. That's all I can say about it. T tier. We're gonna finish up the X-Men movies and then we'll do the Disney Plus shows because I've already talked about some of them, so we're gonna do online. So we're gonna do some of those. And yeah, let's finish the X-Men first though. X-Men Last Stand. Uh, Juggernaut quotes a meme. Magneto moves a big bridge. There's like 5 or 6 mutants who will have the same power, and it's to throw needles. It's an F tier movie. It's a terrible movie. It's a bad film. Britt Ratner is a terrible person. So's Bryan Singer, but he made good X-Men movies. Origins Wolverine also an F. I don't think I need to explain that. We could just move on. What was this one? First Class. First Class. Uh, the first proper prequel movie. That one, again, it's so simple, but in such a great way. It's got this like the whole '60s vibe. I love James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender are just perfectly cast younger versions of Professor X and Magneto. It's just great watching an X-Men movie where the convolutedness of that timeline just doesn't matter. So yeah, that's going in A. One Division. Let me try that again. One Division and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I've talked to death about. I've compared them. Um, they're both C. They're both C's. Loki, I loved. Loki is Doctor Who. Loki is like high budget Doctor Who, and I'm all for that. So that's an A. Hawkeye was fine. Hawkeye's going in C with the other two. Hawkeye. Hawkeye had some really good action scenes in it and introduced some characters I really liked, but it just again, like a lot of the other Marvel shows, just didn't stick the landing. Really, it was just not quite there. I don't think. And what if I didn't finish? Because it bored me. So here we have it. Here's the tier list. There you have it. And there is my tier list of all of the Marvel movies. I don't know if that is all of them or just everything that this tier list I found online had. Uh, and again, the ones I've seen at least. Thanks for watching. Uh, if you're watching the YouTube upload, that's probably better than having watched the stream because I didn't ramble as much. If you are watching the YouTube upload, like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. This was recorded live on Twitch. Because I think it's something I'm going to be doing from now on. Maybe this was quite fun. I enjoyed this. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But that's all. That's all I've got. I'm gonna go and eat food and other human activities. That's a good enough way to end something, right? That'll do.